Well, good afternoon. Once again, I am Southern Truth coming to you live in bringing you updates and some stories in the missing children of Adelaide Oval. If you don't know, the Adelaide Oval abduction occurred in 1973 right here where I reside. And we have got some updates and some photographs that we're going to share because the private investigative team went back to several sites over this past weekend to gather some more evidence and some items in regard to this case to move forward to solve anything, just to collect the evidence and whatnot. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe. Please like, share, and comment if you want to. And we will give our warning. Southern Truth is for entertainment purposes only. We talk news, rumors, gossip, speculation, theory, tied in with yours truly sense of humor. Or people who are alleged are innocent to proven guilty in the court of law. Any opinions or thoughts that I have are solely that they are not fact. Don't take it as fact. They're just my opinions. Any opinions that are given by the audience are theirs only, and none of their opinions are affiliated with any opinions that yours truly have. And last and foremost, go Collingwood. Well, before we get into the case, I want to give you an update on my personal health. Yes, from some, I have been losing weight over the last 10 months, and I'm on a fitness program. I'm on a health program, if you want to call that. Well, today I had my annual quarterly checkup down at the hospital to give them my update information because I had some blood tests done on Thursday and I had to give them the results back to check the liver function, the glucose levels, and so forth, so forth. Well, my glucose level is back to normal. My liver function is fine. My testosterone level is slightly low, but we're working on it. But the hospital said one thing. They were talking about Ozempic. Now, I'm not taking any medical treatment to lose weight. I'm doing it the old-fashioned way without any form of quick fixes or medication to lose weight. Because Ozempic is a quick fix. Yeah, people are using it to lose weight, and they're losing weight at a rapid pace. But once you get to your weight goal, you come off the Ozempic and you put the weight on as quickly as you lost it. So I'm not taking any form, and I refuse to take Ozempic. I'm not taking any medical quick fixes. I'm doing this slowly but gradually. I'm burning the calories off. I'm doing it the old-fashioned way. I'm sweating it out. Just change a little bit of your diet, right? And eat more healthier food and protein and so forth. But I don't really need to change anything too drastic. So I've lost 23 kilos in the last 10 months. Work that out in pounds if you're over in the Northern Hemisphere. And I've got my goal set, and it's achievable, and it's a realistic goal. So thank you, but no thank you. I'm not taking any Ozempic. Right? I don't need any quick fixes. I'm there for the long haul, not there for the short haul. Those people that want to take shortcuts on Ozempic, go ahead. But I don't recommend it to anybody. It does more damage than good in the long term. So, yeah. But anyway, we're talking about the Adelaide abduction that happened in 1973. Joanna Rutcliffe and her friend Kirsty Gordon was taken on a tragic day at a local football game down at Adelaide Oval between North Adelaide and Norwood, and the children had never been seen. Well, a private investigative team and researchers, they went to several locations that are surrounding or a place of evidence in regards to this case, and they did some more excavation, they've done some more digging, and they found some items. And we're going to share some photographs of what they found over the weekend to bring awareness to the audience and to keep the conversation going. Okay, so just bear with me. We'll just grab it right now for you. Give me a couple of seconds. All right. And hopefully everyone can see this. Now, this is one of the items that was found up at one of the sites over the weekend. And it looks like it's a little bit of bone matter with a little bit of glass fragments in it. Now, they have tested this and the results have came back. They thought this might have been a human bone fragment, where it now came out to be non-human. There were some hopes that this might have been a human bone fragment and got some people hopes up and got them to, ask questions and whatnot. But this bone is not human. The question's got to be asked, how did the glass get into this? That's a story in itself. Nobody knows, and they're still trying to figure this out. But this is a bone fragment that was found over the weekend. Unfortunately, the results have came back and no human bone material. Let's continue on. There's another photograph of the same bone. It's got some glass in it. We don't know how the glass fragment came about, but there's some bone fragments. And it's the size of a 50-cent coin. So it's a little bone fragment that was found, that was discovered over the weekend and got them interested, but it turned out to be non-bone. There's the team. There's the team that was up there. A great bunch of people. And I take my hats off to them. They're doing the hard work. Right. So I just want to stop this for a second. So we'll read a bit of update on that bone. The bone appraisal, a forensic anthropologist has assessed the bone being used in pictures and video provided and says that the bone does not appear to be human. It may be the case, they said, that the heat has wrapped the bone, but there's no obvious signs of it being burnt. It was in a pit near to fire, but there were no signs of fire directly against it. The presence of the glass matter means we will seek a direct inspection of the bone by these experts, also to be 100% certified as the appraisal. So they're going to do some more investigation on where the glass actually came from and how it got there and so forth. Right? There's another update. I just want to read this from Brian Littley, who is one of the people that is leading this private investigating up at the site where they found the items. And this is an update yesterday. How do we measure success of our effort in the searches we are doing at Yatna and the surrounding areas? Because there's multiple areas that they went to. It's not just finding stuff of significance, like we believe the bone fragment is what appears to be glass embedded in it is, but uncovering and proofing the information members of the public are coming to us with. Over the weekend, we set out to find suitcases buried in the backyard of Dan Hart's place. Now, Dan Hart is one of the persons that is alleged to be the abductor of the children of Joanna Ratcliffe and Kirsty Gordon. And he used to own a rural property up at Yatna. And apparently there has been some stories from the general public that he was putting something down this pit that weren't even his belongings. There was just random items that were thrown down there. Well, this investigative team went back to this site on the weekend and went to this pit, this garbage pit, and they found some items. And this is the update that Brian Littley was saying. We have dug up this site for a collective 3 days, first locating a rubbish pit and then working along the obvious edge of that pit up to 50 years in age to retrieve items which may be of significance. See, word may be of significance. With our final efforts on Sunday, we found out what we are confident is the remains of a green vinyl suitcase, the likes of which was buried there in the 1990s. It is significant as it appeared to have one time contained a shoe, which is in similar of style. It is not the same as one police had used as a reference item during their searches in relation to their investigation of the abduction of Joanna Radcliffe and Kirsty Gordon in 1973. Other personal items were located in the same area, a shallow side cut in the rubbish pit. It was also where that piece of bone was discovered, and a heavy, thick green glass bottle also. Brian Littley is so happened to have a decade-old brought of similar style suitcase, yellow in colour, opposed to the green material found from a garage sale, because Brian Lilly thought it was funky, and we're going to see the photo for reference. And Brian Lilly have confidence it is a match for the bits and pieces that they have gathered. Work has already begun to place the bone to be examined by experts, which we now have got the result that the bone is not human material in value. Is it human? Well, it's not obviously animal, and that's why we place importance on it. We also had, once again, a lot more people come forward with information which could be critical in this case and others. It is our job, in this scenario at least, to find stuff and keep hope alive. We have a great deal of success over the weekend. And note, the suitcase pictures are for reference only. The old suitcase picture was not found in the search. The buckle, among other items, a match for the suitcase was found in the search. Well, we're going to show you some of these photos right now for you guys to have a look. So here we go. Hopefully this works for you guys. All right. So here it is. There's some of the items that was found over the weekend. There's what seems to be a white shoe, a couple of buckles and loops and whatnot, a little bone material, and God knows what this is down here on the bottom here where my mouse is. All right. There's a type of plate with some name and business. I think it's a business, If anyone can read that properly, let us know in the comments section. Yeah, it's a bit old, it's a bit rusted and whatnot, corroded and so forth. There's that bone material, size of a 50-cent piece. That's a 50 cents here in Australia, 50 cents. There is a old suitcase that Brian Littley was only for reference only. It's not the suitcase that was found, but you can see the similarities, like the buckle and the loops and so forth. That the loops and the buckle was found down in this pit. The suitcase, however, wasn't. But anyway, that's not the suitcase. This was a similar suitcase that Brian Littley bought at a garage sale that's in similar conditions. And that's what he did. That's the suitcase that he bought. And but we want to go back to this white shoe for a second. Just give me a couple of seconds. This white shoe. Because this white shoe was a photograph that was taken in one of the searches by the police. And this is something of relevance here. Just give me a couple of seconds. Here's a photograph of the search that the South Australian Police did. All right. And right up in this back right-hand corner here is the white shoe. But look at what the police doing. They're looking straight down on this mesh, spreading out the rocks and dirt and so forth. But over on his left-hand side was a white shoe. He's not paying attention to this white shoe. Now, this was up at one of the areas where the private investigative team is currently doing their research, but the police didn't really pay much attention to this white shoe. You can see it clearly as day. This white shoe is in the right-hand top corner of this photo on the mesh. On the mesh. And this happened a few years prior to this current investigation. Now, the South Australian police are not involved in this private dig and research at the moment, right? Well, let's just stop it right there for a second, because that white shoe, right? That white shoe that we just saw looked very identical to this. The white shoe is identical. I'm not saying it's the same one, but it looks identical to this. They did find a white shoe up there. Now, is it indeed the same shoe? We don't know. But it's similar. Very, very similar. And it's a bit old. Now, what size shoes were the children wearing at the time? I don't know. What size is this shoe? I don't know. But it's a shoe nevertheless. It is white. It looks very similar. I mean, I don't believe in coincidence. However, the police did find a shoe, but wasn't paying attention to it back when they did their investigation. Now, the private investigative team have taken on board this thing, and they're doing a better job, in my opinion. Is this the same type of shoe? They believe it is, but they're not confirming that it is indeed one of the children's shoes or whatnot, but it looks similar. It looks very similar. It looks around about the same type of age, like the 60s, 70s type of shoe. It does. There is going to be some more testing involved in this shoe. Don't know if they're going to be able to get some DNA. Well, I hope they do, but I don't know due to the dirt that's been on it and so forth. I mean, you can't rub DNA away, like human DNA away from it, but how long has this been down the ground? We don't know. It's been, let's just put it as a minimum, it's been down there for a few decades, at least. That's the bare minimum, but how long has it been down there? That's anybody's guess. That's anybody's guess. But there are some of the items, and it pays very importance in this case. Now, will they ever get to solve it? Well, they're on the right track. Let's put it that way. But it leads them on a path for further investigation. They are gathering a lot more information, a lot more evidence. They're gathering it all, and they're doing a splendid job, and I tip my hats off to them and whatnot. I do. We do want to bring justice. Are we ever going to find the children? I don't know. That's a big if. That's a big if. The children can be anywhere, and because it's been so long, things do move from place to place, but who knows? Now, once again, everybody is innocent to proven guilty in the court of law. Dan Hart, who is alleged to do the abduction, he's no longer alive, so I don't know how you're going to bring a conviction to him, but everything that he's grandson said, who is in jail for similar things like child molesting and whatnot and child abuse. He's in jail and he's bringing out all this testimony that what his grandfather used to do. And this is why the investigative team, private investigative team, are going to Dan's Hart's residence to gather evidence and information. This is the evidence that the private investigative team gathered over the weekend when they were digging up several sites. And this is what they gathered. This is what they collected over the weekend. And the white shoe does play a very important role. Very important role. Very important role. So let's just go back here for a second. I'm just got to gather some more information. All right, some more information for you guys. It's winter here in Australia, and I did find some snakes buried underneath the grass and whatnot. Yeah, you will find some other stuff. You know, they did find. Now here's a video I want to play from Brian. This was up at one of the sites. Now this is up at the reservoir where the well is. Not a well, but a tunnel. They were just at the entrance. They were at the entrance of this well. They weren't actually in it. They were just a couple of feet from the entrance of this tunnel. This is a video that Brian literally took over the weekend up at that location. And I'm just going to share screen it right now for you guys. It's only a short video. And hopefully things can, let's play this. Just hopefully everything is, I'll blow it up. I'll take my stuff off. All right. Well, here we go. We got this. This is Brian Lidley. Bit of bone material there.
Where's this cable? So we got at the end of that.
There's a cable.
That shouldn't be there.
And that shouldn't be there. There's a cable that shouldn't be there. And this is at the entrance of the tunnel. Bit of cable wire. Shouldn't be there.
Beauty.
There's the tunnel.
Let's follow that in.
There's a tunnel. If you just follow my mouth, that's the entrance to the tunnel where a few years ago they did find some barrels inside there. The story goes that Dan Hart put some barrels down this tunnel, well, whatever you want to call it, but the South Australian police said that it was all a fantasy. It was fantasy. It was a make-up story, and the police didn't investigate in it. With some private investigative team who are looking for evidence and clues in regard to the abduction of the Adelaide Oval children, Joanne Radcliffe and Kirsty Gordon. This is at the entrance of that same tunnel. As you saw, they picked up a little bone fragment, which wasn't human, and also this cable line that not supposed to be there at all. So let's continue.
But where were you digging with that last little, or just digging around there? It does look rusty, that ground, doesn't it?
Copper.
Fuck. Is that bone?
It's copper.
That is.
Yeah, copper.
Fuck off.
Copper.
Oh. Jesus. What do you reckon, Corey?
I'm getting closer.
There's a bit of a tree root that he just picked, it looks like. You think he'll be wearing gloves, but due to the water and that, it'll be easy without his gloves on it.
Like this.
One more time. We'll just play it again. Here's that Patnick Dam where the tunnel is at the old reservoir. Don't frame it. Quite don't frame it.
Where's this cable?
Cable.
So we got at the end of that. That shouldn't be there.
Why is the cable there? It's not supposed to be there. It's a damn tunnel. It's a tunnel. Why is the cable supposed to be there? It's not supposed to be there.
Beauty. I'll follow that in. But where were you digging with that last or just digging around there? It does look rusty, that ground, doesn't it?
And there's copper. Copper.
Is that bone? That is.
Bit corroded.
Fuck off. Oh. Jesus. What do you reckon, Corey?
I'm getting closer.
There you go. So there was some items that were down there, some that not supposed to be there at all, and whatnot. So there is going to be further investigation and further developments going on moving forward. They are going to be testing several items that they have gathered just to see what relevance it does have in the case itself. Now, would the children ever be found? Who knows? Who knows? But the more evidence that they have gathered and pieces of evidence that gather that can lead in a direction, this is beautiful job what the private investigative team is doing. Now, the South Australian Police they're not involved in this. However, I will say this, until it becomes a crime scene, I truly believe the right authorities will be called in and they will stop this private investigative team to continue because it becomes a crime scene and therefore the police and law enforcement will have to come in. Now, the problem is, when it comes to this case and several other cold cases here in South Australia, several evidence or items that people have received and they handed it over to the South Australian Police, some of it, if not all of it, has been destroyed. Let me say that again. Other cold cases here in South Australia, when evidence has been gathered up and it has been given over to the authorities, evidence has gone missing and evidence has been destroyed. Now, there is a bit of a rock and a hard place if they do indeed find any type of relevance in this case and the Beaumont children case and so forth, that indeed leads to a crime scene, so to speak. the trust in the general public that surround and support the private investigative team, the trust to the South Australian police is not good. There is barely any trust in the South Australian police to take a lead over this, to take control, because evidence and items and so forth, they've gone missing and evidence has been destroyed. So where did people go to? Well, they go into independent forensic psychologists to take the DNA test and do that. And if it comes back positive, well, where do they go from there? Do they take it to the law enforcement? Even though there's a likelihood of that is a minimum at best, because there's no trust there. There's no trust in the South Australian police. But my question is to the audience, what would you do if you're in this situation? That you're a private investigator, you go out to these locations in question, you gather information, you gather items that surrounds the location, you do your investigating thing, and you take it to an independent forensic analyst to do DNA testing and so forth. And if it comes back positive, where do you move forward? Do you bring the South Australian police in, or no matter if it's in South Australia or overseas, do you bring your local police force in, knowing full well that the trust, the public trust that surrounds these cold cases are down the lowest you can be? There's not much trust in it. People say they are corrupt. There's corruption in the police force and blah, blah. There's been stories and rumors saying that evidence gone missing, evidence being destroyed. You know that you need to bring the police in one way, shape, or form if it becomes a crime scene. If it becomes a crime scene. However, you know that the public trust, you know that evidence being destroyed, evidence being missing, so forth. This is a rock and a hard place. What would you do in this situation? It's a question not even I can answer. And I don't want to be that person in that situation, because they have to make a decision. They do indeed want to do the right thing. They do want to bring solidarity. They do want to bring justice and trying to bring the children back home to a rightful place if they indeed no longer alive, to a rightful burial site, rather than being out in the wilderness, out of middle of nowhere, living under dry desert plain soil. But what would you do? Would you you have to bring the police in one way, shape, or form if it becomes a crime scene. If it becomes a crime scene. But in the back of your mind, the police has destroyed evidence. They have misplaced evidence. Evidence have gone missing, so to speak. New investigating team on the South Australian Police has keep changing and changing over the years. The old crew goes out, the new crew comes in, they take over, and they've got an agenda, if you want to call it that. But where would you take this? Because this has gone on since 1973. The Beaumont children's been going on since 1966. Both of those cases are still unresolved. No one been convicted. The people that gone missing, the children, had never been found. yet. And there's a lot of evidence out there. There's a lot of evidence out there that people have gathered over the years, over the decades, I should say. There's a lot of evidence out there. However, some has been destroyed and some has gone missing by the South Australian Police Force. So the question is once again, what would you do if the testing that gets done by the independent forensic analysts, independent, they're not in the police force, they're independent. You do all the testing, it comes back a positive result, but to move forward in the investigation and to trying to solve the case or whatnot, at some point in time, you will need to bring the South Australian police or no matter if it's South Australia or over in America, Canada, anywhere in the world, you will have to bring the law enforcement in, knowing full well that the public trust that surrounds these cases is way down the bottom of the barrel. There's no trust at all. But you want to do the right thing. What would you do? What would you do? Because I can go into these support pages that surround these two cases, the Beaumont Children case and the Adelaide Oval abduction. And I can see the comments from the supporters saying, do not, under any circumstances, get the police involved. Under any circumstances, do not. Even if it becomes a crime scene, do not get the South Australian police involved. Under any circumstances whatsoever. And that's coming from the public, not the actual private investigative team. That's coming from the general public support. They don't want the police involved in it, full stop. But if you're leading a private investigative team, you're gathering these items that you go and find at these locations. You gather evidence, you gather information, you do all the right things, you do the testing and blah, 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 and it comes back positive. It comes back being a human positive result. Human. What would you do? Did you try to shy away from the public support and get the right type of law enforcement involved? Or would you say, no, I'm not getting the police involved. We know what they do. They've been destroying evidence. They've been misplacing evidence, so forth, so forth. But what would you do? If you're leading an investigating team, a private independent team, what will you do? Because there's another location that has never been searched yet, and there's a truckload of support for that. There's even been thousands upon thousands of signatures in a petition to get this location that never been excavated or searched before to go to this location and to search. Right? And the public support behind this petition up in another location up at Stanbury, you heard me say about it, and it can be in connection with both of these cases, the Beaumont Children case and the Adelaide Oval. It could be. I'm not saying it could be. But that location up at Stanbury has never been investigated thoroughly or at all. No one has placed foot on there to actually look at the site, investigate the site, none of that. However, if that indeed do go ahead and they do investigation and they do research and they find something there, well, I'm talking about bodies, because there's rumors and stories that there's multiple bodies up at Stanbury that's down in this sinkhole well. moving forward, if they do indeed find a body, just one body, let alone half a dozen or more, but if they find one body up there that's down this sinkhole well, you will need to get the police involved and you will need to shut it down because it becomes a crime scene. But here's where the problem is. The public support that surrounds these petitions and groups and private investigative teams, because they've got support groups and that, the public opinion, I'm not saying the investigative team doing it, I'm saying the public opinion, the public support, they don't want police involved at all, full stop. They do not want the police involved at all. But if they find at least one body up at this location which has never been investigated or searched, if they find one body up there, it's a crime scene. You need the police involved. And whatever they say afterwards is out of your control. But the public support that surrounds these support groups and the cases itself, the public support, they all support, and like myself, support these private investigative teams to do the research and to gather evidence and so forth, so forth. But once it becomes that line where you need to get the police involved because it's a crime scene, the public support do not want the police involved because of the reputation that they have. And it's been going on for several decades that the public trust that surrounds these cold cases are the lowest it can ever be. There is no public trust. But what would you do if you're in the lead of the private investigative team, knowing full well that you want to do the right thing? You want to do the right thing. But knowing that over the course of the investigation, you've also been screwed over several times by the South Australian Police. Evidence being destroyed, evidence being displaced, disappeared. That's what they say. Evidence goes disappearing, evidence being destroyed. You're getting the cold shoulder, you're being booked for an appointment or a conference, but yet the person that from the South Australian Police a couple of days prior to you doing your investigation, they cancel it. They cancelled the conference. And the trust doesn't seem to be there. But you want to do the right thing. And it is going to become a crime scene if they do indeed find any significance and relevance to these cases. And it's got to be shut down, becomes a crime scene, and the police has to get involved. And I know for a fact, because I've seen it in several support groups on social media, from the general public response. Every time there's a piece of evidence or a piece of information or whatnot, the public response, they don't want the police involved in it whatsoever. And in any way, shape, or form, they do not want the public to get the police involved. It still remains an open case. It still remains a cold case. It still remains unsolved. But what would you do if you were in charge of this private investigative team? Would you do the right thing? Would you get the police involved, knowing full well that with all the work that you've done, with all the information, evidence, researching, and it comes to that line where everything is saying, yes, there's a human body down there. There's a human boom, the DNA testing comes back being positive of human matter. Would you get the law enforcement involved? No matter how many times they screwed you over, no matter how many times evidence been destroyed and evidence goes missing, would you get the police involved? Would you do the right thing? Would you shut out the public support saying, do not get the police involved? Do not get the police involved, right? In what circumstances? When you do that, I hate to be in that situation. I really would hate to be in that situation. But we're at this time where more information is gathering, more evidence is being received. We'll see where this takes us. And they're on the right path. And I want to tip my hat off to Brian Littley that's doing it and his team work up there. I will be having a phone call with one of the people that is actually our family friend who is involved in this private investigative team, who is working alongside Brian Littley. It's a family friend of ours. And the family friend discovered my YouTube channel, me talking about this case, and gave me a message saying that, I love your passion, I love your heart, I love that you're asking questions. That's what you're doing at the moment. You're asking questions. Because some things that I ask, I'm trying to make sense of it all. Because it's been so long that since this case happened, 1973. I was born in 1979, so 6 years prior. And the Beaumont shooting happened in 1966, and I was born in 79. But growing up as a child and growing up as a teenager and growing up as a young adult and growing up as an adult now, I've learned a lot about the Beaumont children case. It's one of the biggest cold cases, if not the biggest cold case in Australia. I've done a lot of researching in the Adelaide Oval one. I've done a lot of researching in the Wonder Beach disappearance that happened before the missing Beaumont children back in New South Wales. I've done a lot of researching of the backpacker murders of Ivan Milat. Ivan Milat is no longer alive, but Ivan Milat got arrested by the New South Wales police just around the corner from my auntie's place in New South Wales. My auntie used to live in a town called St Andrews. Ivan Milat got arrested at Eagle Vale. They're right next door to each other. And I used to play cricket down at Eagle Vale. And my cousin Trevor, he's 9 months older than me, he played rugby league down at Eagle Vale. And where Ivan Milat, who'd done the backpacker murders, he got arrested and sent to prison before he died at Eagle Vale, which was a very, very small world, if you ask me. Another story, the Dodger Roger Rogerson, who was a corrupt police detective in the New South Wales Police Force. He got arrested at his property around the corner from my grandmother's place in a town suburb called Padstow. My grandmother, when she was alive, lived in Padstow. Roger Rogerson, got arrested on his property in Padstow. There are two cases that is big here in Australia that got arrested, separate incidents, mind you, separate incidents, in the surroundings of my family. And that's on my mother's side. The backpacker murder, Ivan Milat, got arrested at Eagle Vale, which is just around the corner from my auntie's place at the time. And Roger Rogerson was arrested in Padstow. My grandmother lived in Padstow. Roger Rogerson's property at the time was directly around the corner, walking distance, around the corner from my grandmother's place, where he did the last shooting of a person was down at the storage unit. I'm talking about Roger Rogerson and this other guy. The storage unit where he took the Jamie, a guy, but an Asian man named Jamie, into this storage unit. His buddy, I'm talking about Roger Rogerson's buddy, was waiting in there. Bang, bang, bang. Now that storage unit in Padstow, it's right next door to a playing field. Like I used to play soccer on that oval, on that where the soccer oval is. Right next door is the storage unit. Small world, man. Small world. And then when I did move away from Sydney, I went to live in WA, Perth, for 8 years in the 90s. And in the 90s, one of the biggest cases in Western Australia was the Claremont serial killer. I did a lot of research and investigating in that one too. The Claremont serial killer is now in prison. He's been convicted of 2 of the 3 murders. They are highly suspected that he's done the 3rd one too, but the body hasn't been found. They did find the other 2 bodies, right? Plus, he's been convicted of prior crimes and abductions, or sexual assault, I should say, to the Claremont serial killings. The person's in jail right now. I've done a lot of research in that one as well when I was living in Perth. Now I'm living in South Australia, and then there was the bodies in the barrels, Snowtown. I've researched that prior to coming to South Australia, and while I was in South Australia, those people are still in jail. One person's been released because he was a accessory. He was an accessory to the fact. He was one of the accessories. But the prime suspect, they're in jail. They're in jail. You know, there's been a lot of things in my life that I've been discovering and doing some research. And I want to tip my hat off to Brian Littley and his team and any other private investigative team that's doing other work in it as well. There's another private investigative team that's working on the Beaumont children. I tip my hat off to them because I did indeed meet them in the last excavation dig back in February and March of this year. So I salute the private investigative team, and I will be making this call to the family and friend who is currently on the ground with Brian Littley up at the sites up there, and I will be hoping to hear from her soon. All right, guys, leave your comments in the comment section below. Smash that thumbs button. Let's get the algorithm up. Subscribe. Let's try and get the numbers back to where they were prior to COVID. Yeah, I lost 4 channels. Oh, well. Got to keep my mouth shut, eh? Now, let's get the algorithm up. Let's get the support up. Let's get all this up. And we will keep talking about this cold cases and other cases as they come forward. I hope you have your wonderful, wonderful Tuesday. And if nobody loves you, I might. See you later. We'll see you next time.